My name is Samuel. I'm in my 30s, and lately my night job is the only thing keeping me on my feet. Not that I'm complaining, but life pushed me into this abyss of shifts and hours. A few months ago, I was an ordinary man, working an office job. Paperwork, spreadsheets, delivery routes that never worked out. It was the kind of thing you do to pay the bills. But suddenly, the bills got bigger than the salary. My daughter, Sophia, was diagnosed with a rare illness, and the treatments were too expensive. That's when I started looking for a night job, something that could help me pay the expenses. That's when I found the ad online. Night security guard. Reliable, calm, discreet. No experience required. The location was a deactivated shopping mall, the Shadows Courtyard, known for being a place where nothing good ever happens. I was desperate, eating a gas station hot dog and with my cracked phone. I clicked the apply button without a second thought. The next day I got a call from a man named Mr. Harrow. He didn't ask many questions, just my name, my driving record, and if I could start on Monday. I accepted on the spot. 2 months have passed since that day. Now every night I drive for 20 minutes out of town to the mall. The place looks abandoned, with a few stores open, a parking lot full of weeds, and only one wing with working lights. During the day, few people visit it. At night, it's just me and the mall. I never had a problem with being alone. Since I was a kid, I was always calmer, preferring books and puzzles. That helped me adapt to this job. I arrive around 10 p.m., clock in with a machine, and enter. The smell of old meat and garbage dominates the air, but I avoid breathing. My office is near the food court, with a monitor that shows grainy images from the security cameras. But my job isn't to sit and watch. My job is to walk. My first stop is always the gun shop on the north end of the mall. The store sells everything from knives to guns. The walls are adorned with fake deer heads, and the wooden floor creaks with every step. Inside, behind the counter, is Jesse. He wears a wide-brimmed hat, a duster coat, and boots that make a sound with every step. His mustache looks like something out of an old movie. His eyes are almost colorless, and he never blinks. He leans against the glass counter as if he's been waiting for something for 100 years. "Good evening, we meet again," he says. "Good evening, Jesse." "You look tired," he says. "I am." "Are you getting used to the darkness?" he asks. "I think so," I say. We have a routine. Every night he calls me a different name. Sheriff, deputy, marshal. Once he called me tracker. I asked him what I was tracking, and he replied, "What aren't you?" I tap my flashlight to stay awake. The guns on the walls look real, but one of them, made of melted bone, scares me. "How's business?" I ask. Jesse shrugs. "Same as always. Haven't had a customer in 30 years. Had a ghoul come in last week, but he just licked the shotgun rack and wandered off." "Sounds familiar," I say. He looks at me with strange eyes. "What brings you here, Samuel?" "I'm doing my rounds." "That's true, but you always start with me," he replies. I look at the painting of a buffalo with red eyes, which seems to change shape. "Do you still want to know how I died?" he asks. "If you're ready to tell me the truth this time," I reply. "I always am. You're the one who doesn't believe," he says. "You're not. Last time you said you were eaten by coyotes. The time before that, you said your wife poisoned your whiskey." "Both are true, technically," he replies. "You don't even remember your real name." "I remember guns," he replies. I lean on the counter. "Why are you here, Jesse? Why are all of you here?" He shrugs. The place doesn't let you go. Some die and keep walking. Others die and forget they died. Me, I stayed because there are still bullets to polish and stories to tell. But you're not dead. Not yet. No, I say. So why are you working this night shift in a mall full of creatures with too many teeth? He asks. I hesitate. I don't usually talk about my life, but Jessie has a way of making me talk. My daughter is in the hospital. She has a rare condition, something genetic. The doctors say it's manageable, but the treatments aren't covered. My day job pays enough, but not enough to cover the costs. This place offered me more money than I thought I would get in one paycheck, so I said yes. I thought I could handle it. The nights are calm. Calm like a loaded rifle on a windowsill, he says. Yeah, something like that. He nods his head. A kid? I didn't know you had one. She's 6. She loves puzzles. She has a blue backpack shaped like a fox that she takes everywhere, I say. What's her name? He asks. Sophia, I say. He repeats the name in a whisper. Sophia. He leans down and comes back with a wooden box. He opens it, and inside are 6 bullets. They glow like moonlight through water. These aren't for people, Jessie says. What are they? I ask. Ghost shells. They're for the kind of things that don't bleed right, he replies. I frown. Ghost shells? You're giving me haunted bullets now? Not haunted, just specialized, he replies. I pick one up. It's cold. Not cold like metal, but cold like a place where no one breathes. Will they work in my gun? I ask. They'll fit, and they'll work. Just don't use them on the wrong thing. They don't stop people. They stop the things that can't be stopped, he says. Why are you giving me this? I ask. He stares at me with his strange eyes. Because you have something worth coming back for. Most people here, they forgot what they were holding on to. That makes them dangerous. But you still remember. That makes you dangerous too, in a different way. I put the bullets in my belt. Thank you. He tips his hat again. You're welcome. Just a little insurance. If you find yourself facing something that doesn't care what you are, you'll be glad to have them. I put the ghost shells in my pouch along with the regular bullets. They make a sound. They are lighter, but not by much. Cold, but not in a way that mattered now. Jessie is not the worst person to deal with. He's strange, but at least he's consistent. Always at the counter, always with a smile on his face, always talking like a man trapped in an old western that only he remembers. He doesn't lie, not exactly. He just forgets which version of the truth he's already told. I don't trust him, but I don't need to. He hasn't tried to hurt me. That puts him ahead of half the things in this place. The gun shop door creaks when I push it open, the same sound as always. My next stop is the ice cream stand. The place is always colder than it should be. I find her crouching behind the ice cream cart. She's not crying or asking for help, just sitting on the floor with her knees bent, her face half hidden in her arms. I wouldn't have noticed her if it weren't for the ice cream cone on the counter. It hasn't melted, which means she hasn't been there for long. I lean over the cart. Hey, I say. She flinches, but doesn't run. She lifts her head slowly. Her face is pale, and her eyes are wide. Why are you hiding? I ask. She winces. I'm scared. I squat next to the cart. Of what? I ask. She doesn't answer. She looks at the escalators. Her fingers twist in the hem of her shirt. There's a scary man in the boiler room. I study her. You saw him? She shakes her head. I don't want to talk about it. I don't push. It's okay. We stay like that for a minute, Me squatting next to the cart, her curled up, both of us looking at the hallway. Finally, I turn around and sit with my back to the cart. You know, if there's a scary man in the boiler room, I better go take care of it. She looks at me again. Aren't you scared? Of course I am, I say. Then why are you going? I'm going because I have ghost shells, I say. She gives me a confused look. Yeah, I don't know about the ghost shells either, but I do have secret powers. She frowns. Like what? I can scoop the perfect ice cream ball blindfolded. That's not a power. It is in this mall. Do you want to see? She hesitates, then nods. I get up and go behind the counter. The scoop is already in the bucket, waiting, as if it knew I would need it. The mint chocolate chip ice cream container is cold, but not frozen. I scoop a ball of ice cream and hand it to her in a cone. She takes the cone with both hands and licks it before it starts to drip. Is it perfect? I ask. She smiles. Pretty good. Pretty good? I ask her again. She nods her head again.
I lean on the cart and watch her eat. More slowly now, more relaxed. She's no longer hugging herself. She's no longer shaking. Sometimes she's talkative, and sometimes she's quiet, like today. When she's quiet, I don't pressure her. Lily has been here longer than me, and the only thing I know is that she never talks about her family or how she got stuck in this place. I stopped asking a long time ago. I know she died here. I saw the incident report one night when I was looking for old files in the office. She's been sitting behind this cart ever since, never leaving the second floor. Talking to her is part of my routine. In my opinion, someone should.
Every night I ask how she is, and most nights she answers with a shrug or a smile. I don't think she knows how much I watch over her. I always go through this floor twice, not once. I always pass the fountain, even if I don't hear anything, even if she's not there. Because some things in this place are dangerous, even for the dead. The boiler room is past the loading docks, behind a door with the sign, Maintenance, Authorized Personnel Only. The paint on the sign is faded, but the letters are still clear. You would miss it if you weren't looking. Before I open the boiler room door, I check the salt line. It's straight on the doorstep, like a white rope, new every 2 nights. There's a bag of coarse salt in the closet down the hall, one of the only things in this job that came with written instructions. Keep the salt line intact. Replace it every other shift. Don't sweep it with your foot. Use the edge of a clipboard or your hand. I kneel to check. It's still solid. I run my finger on the back of the door step to feel for gaps. There are none. Good. I unlock the door and push it open.
The heat hits first. It's not unbearable, but it's close. It smells of metal, old bricks, and something I've never been able to name. The room is long with high ceilings and the network of pipes that extend in all directions. The boiler in the center breathes slowly and deeply. The pilot light a red glow behind the grates. The room is always quiet. The machines hum, but the noise doesn't spread. He's here tonight. He always is. I don't see him right away, but he waits. I walk the usual path, 3 steps, turn right, past the water tanks, keep left around the large ventilation pipe. The floor is stained with dark marks that I've never been able to clean. They don't smell and don't disappear. I stop worrying about them. And then, there he is, Mr. Longneck. His head appears behind a rusty pillar near the wall. Only the upper half of his face at first, wide eyes, smooth gray skin like wax. He smiles when he sees me, the same smile as always. Lips curved a little too much, teeth too clean. I don't talk anymore when I enter. I used to. In my first week, I greeted him like anyone else. Hi, hello. He never answered. I kept talking for a while just to fill the space. Jokes, short sentences, even questions. He never said anything. He just watched. The second time I saw him, I thought he was in front of the pillar. I took a few steps closer, and the rest of his body didn't follow. Just his head, moving slowly, turning the corner, his neck appeared first. Thin, long, stretching like a hose around the concrete pillar. Too long. No visible end. It kept curving behind the boiler, his body never revealing itself. And it still hasn't. I stopped trying to understand after that. Now I enter, do what I have to do, and leave. Tonight, he moves a little when I get close to the boiler. His neck twitches like a cat, adjusting its posture. I don't stop, I just keep walking. The clipboard in my hand has a checklist: temperature, pressure, valves. I mark all of them without looking directly at him. He watches the whole time. The other dead avoid this room. They never come here. Even the things that aren't ghosts, those that crawl or move through walls, avoid this place. He is not one of them. I don't know what he is. I've asked before, no one tells me. All I know is that he stays in the boiler room, and it's my job to make sure he stays here.
I move to the gauges. Everything is within the normal range. The pressure is stable. The dials change now and then, but nothing jumps. That happened once. A sharp spike, a burst of heat, the sound of something scraping inside the tank. I was alone that night. I stayed 2 feet from the exit the whole time. Tonight is calm. I checked the seals on the main line. No leaks. Mr. Longneck hasn't blinked. I don't think he has eyelids. His smile doesn't move, but I feel like he's happy I showed up. Maybe he likes the visits. Or maybe he's just waiting for me to forget the salt. I tighten the last valve and step away, clipboard under my arm. I nod in his direction once, not out of politeness, but because I want him to see that I'm not scared. It's not exactly true, but it's part of the routine. I go back the way I came, retracing my steps. I don't look back. I never do. When I get to the door, I step over the salt line carefully and close the door. It closes with a heavy click. The salt is still there, white, clean, intact. I sprinkle a thin layer of salt over the line again, just to be sure. I've never seen him cross the line. I have no plans to find out if he can. There's one more round to make before the night is over. The back rooms. That one is always strange. The back rooms are not on any map I've seen. They are not part of the regular mall layout. Not even the old floor plans that the maintenance guy left in a box near the elevator. There are no doors labeled back rooms, no signs. But they are there, hidden behind locked access points, storage closets, and sometimes behind walls that shouldn't open. The one I use is near the service corridor behind the furniture store. You press the palm of your hand against a blank metal panel and wait 6 seconds. Then the wall unlocks with a soft click and opens like a heavy freezer door. Inside, everything smells of dust and soap. The lights hum overhead, but they stay on. The floor is the same beige tile you see in the employee-only sections, except that some tiles don't match. Too clean, too new, as if they were replaced by someone who didn't care about the pattern. The corridors curl up, they branch out. You can get lost if you don't pay attention, but I learned the way to bend. He's not far. 4 turns, 3rd door on the left. No number on the door, no label, just an old brass doorknob that sticks when it's humid. I always knock once before entering. I bring him coffee tonight, as I always do. Red ceramic mug, black coffee, no sugar. He never asks for anything fancy. He doesn't even drink it most of the time. He just holds it as if it means something. He's already in the room when I enter, sitting on the floor, leaning against the wall, legs stretched out. The same uniform every time. Gray shirt, black cargo pants, a laminated badge clipped to his front pocket. The name has been erased from the badge,
But I know what it says. Bennett, night security. I brought you something, I say, holding out the mug. He doesn't move at first, just looks at me with a slow blink. His hair is thinning on top, cut short on the sides. His eyes are dark and always a little tired. I take a few steps and squat next to him. He finally reaches out, wraps both hands around the mug, and holds it close to his chest. He doesn't drink. He rarely does. The first time I met Ben, he didn't speak for a whole week. I thought he couldn't. His mouth would open a little, but no words would come out. Just gestures, nods, blinks. He sometimes paced, moved chairs from one side of the room to the other, and then back again. It took 3 weeks until I found out his name. Now he talks in short bursts, with a low voice, like someone waking up from a long nap. He forgets things easily, but not coffee, never coffee. "Are you okay?" I ask. He shakes his head, still looking at the mug. "It's hot," he says. "Yes, fresh," I say. He seems to like that. A small smile pulls the corner of his mouth. The room where he stays is nothing special. Plain walls, no windows, a folding chair in the corner, a supply cart with broken wheels, a corkboard without pins. No clocks. No exits other than the one I entered. Ben is trapped here just like the others, but he's different. He used to be like me. He walked these corridors, did the rounds, checked the gates, clocked in and out. Then something happened. No one tells me what. The records are incomplete. Most of them are classified or completely missing. But I heard enough from Jesse and hints from Lily to know that Ben had an encounter in the boiler room. I saw the way he twitches when I mention it. His eyes dart to the walls, his shoulders tense. He doesn't say what happened. He's sensitive. He doesn't like surprises. If you approach too fast, he grabs your arm. If you ask too many questions, he shuts down. And if you try to leave without saying goodbye, he locks the door behind you. I learned that lesson early. It took me 20 minutes to calm him down the first time. He only opened the door after I slid the mug under the table and promised to bring another one the next night. Coffee calms him. He says it's the only thing he really remembers about being alive. The smell, the warmth of the mug in his hands, the routine, as if it were proof that something real still exists. I sit on the floor in front of him. We don't talk for a while. We just sit there, as always. "Do you want me to stay?" I ask. He shakes his head slowly. Rounds. "Yes," I say. I get up, stretch, and move to the door. I don't rush. You don't rush with Ben. I turn the doorknob slowly, open the door, and go back to the beige corridor.
The back rooms are quiet. They usually are. I keep walking until I get to the access door again. The metal panel is cool under my hand. I press the palm of my hand and wait. After 6 seconds, the lock releases with a click. The door opens slowly, heavy on its hinges. I step out into the corridor and close it behind me. It seals tightly. I run a finger down the seam, checking for any openings. It's still solid. I keep the red mug with me. Ben never finishes his coffee. He just holds it until it cools, then puts it near the wall as if he's saving it for later. I always pick it up on my way out. I clean it in the break room sink, make a new cup the next night. Sometimes he calls me by a name that isn't mine. Once he asked me if I still park behind the shoe store. That store has been closed for a decade. I think he remembers parts of his life like old photos, flashes of routine, things that mattered once. But I can work with that. You make your way through this place however you can. Some people hold on to hate. Others forget everything. Ben is holding a mug of black coffee, as if it's the only thing that keeps him from falling completely. And maybe it is. The sun is low behind the trees when I leave through the side entrance. Pale light touches the asphalt. The parking lot is almost empty. Only a few cars are parked near the south wing where the shoe store opens early. At the main entrance, a woman is standing alone. She wears a gray coat, zipped to the top, and dark jeans tucked into boots. Her hair is tied back. She keeps her eyes on the glass, as if she's trying to see something inside. I keep walking. I pass the trash cans and go to my car before I stop. My keys are in my hand. I turn them once, then put them back in my pocket.
I walk back to the front entrance. She doesn't notice me until I'm a few feet away. Her face is calm, but her jaw is tight. She doesn't step back, doesn't shift her weight. She just looks at my badge. "I'm not trying to go in. I know it's early," she says. "It's okay. It's mostly closed anyway. Just a few shops open during the day," I say. "I figured," she says. She looks at the glass doors. One of the bulbs on the mall sign is burned out. The mall's name is missing a letter. "I used to come here all the time with my daughter," she says. I don't say anything. I let her continue. "We had a routine, Friday afternoons. She would get ice cream upstairs. The same flavor every time," she adds. She smiles a little, then looks down at her hands. "Do you work nights?" she asks. I nod. "Security." "Long hours?" she asks. "Yes," I say. I meet her eyes. She has the same look that Lily gets when she's thinking about something she doesn't want to say yet. "My daughter is 6. She's in the hospital right now," I say. The woman nods once. "I'm sorry." "It's manageable, just expensive," I say. She puts her hands in her coat pockets. Her nails are short and unpainted. There's a small tear in the fabric near her wrist. "She died here. It was an accident. She was 9. I haven't been back in years. I didn't even mean to stop. I was just driving by," she says. I nod. "Fridays used to be our thing. We would get ice cream at the cart near the fountain." "Mint chocolate chip," I say. She smiles. Yes, that's right. She used to say it tasted like brushing your teeth, but fun." I smile back. She widens her eyes. "How did you know it was mint?" "Lucky guess," I say. We stand there for a while. A mall employee parks in the lot and walks past us without looking up. The woman follows him with her eyes, then turns back to the doors. Neither of us says anything for a minute. Then she looks at me. "I hope your daughter gets better." "Thank you," I say. She takes a small step back, looking at the parking lot. "I have to go. I didn't mean to take up your time." "You didn't," I say. She pulls her coat tighter. "Thanks for talking." "Yes, anytime," I say. She starts walking. Her boots make small sounds on the pavement. When she gets to her car, she opens the door, looks back once, and gives a small wave. I wave back. She gets in and leaves. The car is clean, but it has a crack in the corner of the windshield. I watch her for a while, the glass doors reflecting the morning sky behind me. The lights in the entrance hum again. Inside, the floor cleaning machine hums near the food court. Then I turn to my car and go home. The check arrives in the mail on a Thursday, a simple white envelope, no logo, just my name and address. I open it over the sink, standing with my coat still on and the front door half closed behind me. It's more than I expected. That night, I call the hospital. I pay every last bill, room costs, tests, medication. I read the numbers slowly, just to hear the woman on the other end say, "Paid in full." I sleep better that night than I have in months. The next day, I drive to the hospital and sit with my daughter, Sophia. She is eating cereal from a paper cup and watching cartoons without sound. She holds my hand the whole time. She doesn't ask me anything. She just smiles as if she knows something has changed. I could have quit my job after that, but I don't. The mall is still the same, still quiet, still strange in all the familiar ways. Jesse greets me as usual, polishing a revolver and arguing with no one in particular. Lily offers me a cone. Ben shakes his head when I hand him the coffee, holding the mug with both hands as if it's the only thing that keeps him anchored. The salt line is intact. I make a new one anyway. I see the woman sometimes. She stands outside near the doors at opening time. She never enters. We don't say much. We just nod. Sometimes she waves. I keep clocking in long after the bills are paid. There's no reason to stay, not really. The bills are paid, my daughter's getting better. I have no more debts, except sleep. I stay for a few reasons. Part of it is the silence and the routine. Part of it is knowing that things in this place still need to be watched. But mostly, I stay because I have a feeling that there are more stories waiting. Not all of them are good, not all of them are easy, but they are here, in the corridors, in the rooms that no one else visits. And until someone is ready to take my place, I will continue to collect them. One day, when a rookie shows up, a fresh uniform, a clean clipboard, I will sit him down and tell him everything he needs to know, which doors to avoid, who to talk to, who not to talk to, and I will have some stories ready for him just in case. The ghost shells are still in my pouch. I check them sometimes. I roll one between my fingers, making sure they haven't cracked or crumbled. They haven't. They feel the same as the day Jesse gave them to me. Cold, solid, just a little lighter than the others. I keep them separate from the standard bullets, labeled and lined up. I haven't had to use them. Most nights go by without problems. Whatever this place is, it has its own rhythm, its own rules. The things that roam stay where they should, and the ones who linger don't cross their lines. Still, I carry them. I learned that it's better to be prepared. In this job, you don't always get a warning, and when something really appears, it won't ask if you're ready. So the shells stay close. A pocket next to my pen light and my notebook. A small weight that I don't mind carrying. If I need them, they will be there, and I will know exactly what they are for.
The routine was a comfort, a shield against horror. But that night, the shield shattered. The darkness on the monitor was the prelude. The silence, the absence of echoes, was a silent scream that told me something was wrong. I ran to the boiler room, but the door was open. The salt was scattered on the floor, a white line of protection now broken. Mr. Longneck's smile floated in my mind, his absence more terrifying than his presence. He had broken the rule, and I was in his way. I ran to Ben's room, the door open. The coffee mug was on the floor, upside down. The smell of cold coffee and mold filled the air. Ben, the guard who never forgot his coffee, had been broken. My heart pounded in my chest. The gun shop was my last hope. Jesse was there, standing in the middle of the room, his hands hanging at his sides. His smile was gone, replaced by an expression of pure terror. "What happened, Jesse?" I asked, my voice a whisper. "They came for you. They want your face," he said, his voice lifeless. My hand went to my pouch, my fingers feeling the cold of the ghost chills. "You can't fight them. They are not like us. They are your own demons." I didn't hear him. I ran to the main exit. The door that was always locked was open, revealing the darkness of the night. There in the front of the entrance was the woman, but she wasn't alone. She was surrounded by faceless figures, creatures with sharp teeth and holes instead of eyes. They surrounded me, looking at me with their empty faces. I looked at her. The woman approached me, and I saw the horror in her eyes. She was crying, but she couldn't do anything. "We just want you to help us. We want your face," she said. I shot. The ghost shells shone, turning the creatures into ashes, but they kept coming, more and more. The woman grabbed me, her hands holding me tightly. "Don't worry, we'll help you remember. We'll show you what you lost," she said. I looked at my hand and saw a hole. I looked at my reflection in the window and saw a hole in my face. I was no longer Samuel. I was one of them. They took me to the gun shop, where I became part of the collection.
With every mile the truck devoured, the driver felt paranoia take root in his mind. The persistent silhouette in his rear view, a car that seemed to shadow his every move, even when the curves of the road made it disappear for a moment, only to reappear closer than before. Upon reaching the motel, the feeling of safety was a mirage. The room, which should have been a refuge, became a prison. He locked the door, the window, and hid under the covers, but his mind refused to shut off. Thoughts swirled in an endless loop. What did he want? What was in the back of the truck? What would he do if he caught me? The silence was broken by a metallic sound, a sinister rhythm of knocking. The sound came from the parking lot, directly from his truck. He got up, cautiously, and pressed against the window. There, under the faint light of the lamppost, was the same truck. The man got out of the vehicle, a macabre smile on his face, and approached his truck. "No, no, please," he whispered to himself. The man went to the back of the vehicle and opened the bay doors. For a second, their eyes met and the driver froze. Distance didn't matter. The man could see him. The man climbed into the truck, and the sound of metal twisting echoed through the night. It was as if he was tearing the truck apart with his bare hands. He tore out a giant tire, twice the size of a person, as if it were a feather. The man stopped and looked at the room window. He threw the tire, breaking the glass and setting off the alarm. The driver ran to the bathroom, locked the door, and huddled on the floor, praying. The truck came to life, the engine roaring and the tires singing on the asphalt. It moved, leaving the driver behind. Hours passed, and silence returned. He heard nothing, only his breathing and his heart. He came out of the bathroom and went to the window. The truck was not there. Still terrified, he called the police. The voice on the line asked, "What happened? Was the truck stolen?" "I don't know, but I think he took something from inside it." They sped away, the car leaving a trail of dust. With every second, the distance between them and the officer grew. They didn't dare look back. The only thing that mattered was to escape. After hours on the road, they crossed the border and stopped. Silence reigned in the car, a disturbing silence. They looked at each other, and a panic hit them. The car was stopped in the same place they had fled from. The barn was ahead, a waiting monster, and the men were outside, their shotguns pointed at them. "What are we going to do?" one of the girls asked. The officer got out of the car, his face expressionless. He stopped in front of the car, looked at them, and smiled. "Did you really think I was going to let you go? I never do. You're not lucky, girls. You're in a trap," he said with a smile on his face. "What do you want from us? Why did you follow us?" another asked. "What do I want? I want something from you, something very special." He walked around the car and pointed to the cornfield. He began to whistle, a horrendous sound that made all the birds fly out of all the cornfields. The cornfield opened up and revealed a 6-foot creature with white eyes and long arms. The monster looked at them and smiled. His mouth had no teeth, just holes. "This is your chance. Get out of the car and walk to the barn. If you do what I say, maybe I'll let you go. Maybe," he said. The creature approached. "We're going to die," one of them said. Stacy looked at her and the monster. "No, we're not," Stacy said. "What are you going to do?" the other asked. Stacy smiled. "We're going to do what we do best. Run." She accelerated the car, running over the officer and the monster. The car moved, leaving the nightmare behind. They didn't go home. They went to the military base, where they told the story. No one believed them. Help was on the way, but the wait seemed eternal. The girl looked at the back door, fear haunting her. She saw a hand on the glass. The person's arm was long and bony, and the fingers had claws. The back door opened, and the man she had seen in the car came out. The man smiled. His mouth was large, his teeth were sharp, and his eyes were red. He grabbed her by the arm and dragged her out of the car. The other man, who had helped her, did nothing. She screamed, but no one heard her. The man carried her into the car, put her in the trunk, and closed the door. She stayed there, in the dark, the smell of mold suffocating her. She heard the car door open and close. She was alone, in the dark, with the monster. "I won't hurt you. I'm taking you home. It's my job," he said. He started driving. She looked at the back of the seat. The back seat was torn. She could see the car's light. She crawled to the back and tried to open the door, but she couldn't. She hit the door, but it was no use. She sat down, crying, waiting for death. She couldn't run. She was trapped. She felt something touching her hair. She turned and saw the man's hand, the same hand that grabbed her. "I told you I wouldn't hurt you. I told you I would take you home," he said. He looked at her and smiled. "But I didn't say you would come back alive," he said. And he grabbed her, his claws in her skin, and dragged her into the darkness. They returned the next day, the sunlight clearing the forest. The house looked like a ghost. They found the brother's car. The battery was dead. They looked around, searching for the man the brother had seen, but found nothing. The next day, they went home. The brother didn't talk about what happened, but the story didn't end. Weeks later, the young truck driver had the same problem with the van. The lights went out in the middle of the road. He called his brother for help. The brother, now older and more experienced, got in the car and drove to his brother. He arrived at the scene and found his brother on the ground. He approached, and his brother was no longer there. He looked around and saw his truck. The truck was abandoned with the doors open. He approached the truck and saw something in the back seat. It was his brother, but the brother was no longer his brother. His skin was white, his eyes were red, and his mouth was full of teeth. "What happened to you?" he asked. "I'm not me anymore. I'm him, and he wants you." He turned and saw the man on the road. He was not a man, he was a ghost. The ghost was the same person who had haunted him on the road. The ghost smiled. "You found me. I told you I was going to find you," he said. The ghost started walking towards him. "You're going to be my next victim," he said. The brother ran, but the ghost followed him. He hid in a truck, but the ghost was in front of him. "I told you, I'm going to get you." He ran to the house. The house was the safest place he could go. He entered the house and locked the door. He sat on the floor, crying, waiting for death. He looked at the window and saw the ghost. "I told you I was going to get you, and I will," he said. The brother ran upstairs. He hid in the room, under the bed. "I know you're there. I can feel your fear." The ghost was in front of the door. "I'm going to get you, and you won't escape from me. You'll never escape from me again." And he got him. They fled, the car speeding, leaving the nightmare behind. The silence inside the car was the only thing that accompanied them. The trio did not talk about what happened. They went to the base and locked themselves in the room. They didn't want to talk to anyone. They just wanted to forget. But one of them couldn't. He who saw the creatures could not forget. He was the only one who saw the faces of the creatures. Their faces were not normal. They had no eyes, no nose, no mouth. The only thing they had were what looked like holes, holes that had nothing inside. He remembered what the cult leader had said. They don't have faces, they have holes, and they want your faces. He didn't know what that meant, but he felt terrified. One night he wakes up to a noise, the sound of metal clanging. He gets up and goes to the window. He sees a creature, the same one he saw in the cornfield, in front of the door. He runs to his friend's room, but they are not there. He panics. He goes to the living room and sees a face. The face is not human. The face is a creature's. The creature smiles. "We met again. I told you we would meet again," the creature said. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "I want your face. I want your face for myself. I will collect your faces, and yours will be my masterpiece," the creature said. He ran, but the creature chased him. He hid in the room under the bed. "I know you're there. I can feel your fear," the creature said. The creature was in front of the door. "I'm going to get your face, and you won't escape from me. You'll never escape from me again." And it got him. I've always loved the sound of rain. As a remote copywriter living alone in a small cottage on the outskirts of Asheville, North Carolina, the rainy nights usually help me focus. My apartment is tucked behind an old craftsman-style house, shaded by ancient oaks and shielded by a tall wooden fence. It's a little detached studio, cozy, quiet, and just remote enough that you don't hear the traffic from the highway. On nights like this, when the thunder rolls across the mountains and the air smells like damp bark and churned up soil, I feel like I'm in a cabin deep in the woods. That April night, I made some tea around 7 p.m., dimmed the lights, and opened a few windows to let in the storm. I had a project due the next morning, so I sat at my desk with my laptop, the rain tapping the glass and the wind brushing the trees. There were a few rumbles of thunder, nothing dramatic. The lights blinked a bit, but the power held steady. It was peaceful. I was even humming to myself at one point, just enjoying the calm and the rhythm of typing. But the calm broke. Around 8:30, there was a flash of light outside, bright enough to cast stark shadows on the walls, followed by a crack like something splitting apart right above the house. The lights in the house dimmed, flickered, then cut out completely. My laptop screen stayed lit for another second before blinking into darkness. I sighed and leaned back in my chair. It wasn't the first time. Storms in the mountains could get intense, and losing power wasn't unusual. I grabbed the lighter from my drawer and lit a couple of candles. The flickering light gave the apartment a golden, uneven glow, casting long, dancing shadows in every corner. The darkness settled in. And then I heard a knock. But it wasn't from the front door, the one everyone uses. It came from the back, from the kitchen door, the one that opened to the fenced-in alley. Nobody ever used that door. I hadn't even opened it in weeks, and the gate beyond it was always latched. The knock came again. 3 solid, spaced-out raps, not frantic, not timid, just eerie. I stood completely still, candle in hand, staring toward the kitchen. My first thought was that maybe a neighbor got confused, but no one should have been back there, especially not during a storm like this. My landlord always used the front path. I didn't realize it at first, but I was barely breathing. I moved toward the kitchen slowly, the candle casting dancing shadows on the walls. When I reached the door, I saw him. A man. He was standing just beyond the glass. He was completely soaked, his jacket clinging to him, his jeans dark with water, his boots puddling onto the mat. No umbrella, no protection, just standing there under the pouring rain like he didn't feel it. He looked to be in his late 30s, maybe 40s, a ball cap pulled low over his eyes with a calm expression. You know when someone looks too calm? I didn't open the door. My instinct screamed not to. He looked up, spotted me, and gave a faint smile, then lifted one hand and gestured as if to say, "Come here." I didn't move. I stayed right where I was, behind the table, my body locked up with fear. He spoke through the glass. "Sorry to bother you. My car broke down just up the alley. I just need to use your phone real quick." Even through the thick glass, I could hear the smoothness in his voice. Too friendly, too chill, like asking to borrow sugar. It didn't fit the situation. I shook my head. "Sorry, I can't help you." He gave me this puzzled little tilt of the head, like he didn't understand. Then the smile returned, wider now, and he said my name. Mara. "Please, Mara, it'll only take a second." He didn't ask. He just said it plain and soft, like we already knew each other. My heart started pounding against my ribs. I hadn't introduced myself. I hadn't said a word except to tell him no. I didn't have a nameplate anywhere. How did he know? He tapped one knuckle gently against the glass again. "Come on, don't be rude. You've got your phone right there." I backed away, keeping the candle in front of me like it offered protection. I didn't say another word, just turned, walked to the bathroom, and locked myself inside. I sat on the edge of the tub, trying to steady my hands enough to unlock my phone. Still no power, no signal either. The storm must have knocked out the nearest tower, or maybe the mountains were blocking the reception. I tried to dial 911 anyway. Nothing. I sat there in the dark, just me and the candle, alone in that oppressive silence, feeling completely cut off from the world. A few minutes crawled by, then something moved. A dull, low thud from the living room, like someone stepped too hard on an old floorboard. I strained to hear over the sound of the rain now hammering the roof. Another sound, closer, a soft bump, like something brushed the hallway wall. I covered my mouth with my hand and stayed still. I could feel the air tighten around me, like the space was getting smaller. I stared at the door, afraid it might swing open. My phone still had no service. The glow of the screen mocked me. Then finally, the power flickered back. The bathroom light clicked on, blinding me for a second. I blinked and checked my phone. 2 bars. I called the police and kept my voice low. The dispatcher listened, took my address, and said someone was on the way. She asked if I felt safe to stay on the line, but I said no. I was scared to make any noise. She told me to stay put and keep the door locked. It took 52 minutes for the officer to arrive. When he knocked this time, at the front, I demanded his badge number and name before I so much as unlatched the door. He stepped inside, checked around with a flashlight, then made his way to the back. The man was gone. But there were tracks, muddy footprints that led away from the back door and vanished into the tree line. No tire marks, no second set of prints, just his. I told the officer everything. He filed a report and said they'd add extra patrols through the area for a few days, but they didn't seem surprised. He looked at me and said, "We get reports like this more than you'd think. Criminals who wait for storms to cover the sound of them breaking in." That didn't make me feel better. I moved out a month later. Found a new place across town, somewhere with street lights, neighbors, no back door. Whenever it rains, my mind goes right back to that night, especially when it comes down hard, when it drowns out every other sound. And I still freeze when I hear a knock. The sound of his voice saying my name echoes in my head. And the absence of tire marks. I know what I saw. The footprints didn't come from a broken car. He came from within the forest. And he knew my name. A week after moving into my new house, I received a small box in the mail. It had no return address. Inside, there was a small carved wooden object. It was a perfect miniature of my old house, complete with the fence and the tiny back door leading to the alley. And on the front door, a name was carved into the wood. Mara. My blood ran cold. That man hadn't known my name by chance or from a nameplate. He knew me. He had watched me. He saw my new address. I started having panic attacks. The police couldn't do anything without proof, just advice to lock the doors. 2 months passed, no other letters. The anxiety lessened, replaced by a silent, constant fear. One night, a storm caught me by surprise, a heavy rain with thunder and lightning. I tried to calm myself, remembering I was in a safe place. Late in the night, the rain subsided. The wind stopped. A strange silence filled the air. I lay in bed, relieved. Then, a creak. It came from the living room. It wasn't a floorboard. It was the sound of heavy wood moving. I froze. The living room of my new house had a large window facing the street. The blind was closed, but I could see the silhouette of the slats through the dim streetlight. And the silhouette moved. Slowly, a gap opened, and a slender, elongated shape peered through. Its head was tilted. I could feel a fixed gaze on me. I had no candles this time. The darkness was absolute. My heart was a drum. The blind opened a little more. I couldn't breathe. The shape moved, and I could see something. A slender hand reached out and began to slide across my window. Instead of nails, the hand had thin, dark claws, which made a scraping sound against the glass. Slowly, the hand drew a single word in the condensation on the window. My name, Mara. My mouth opened to scream, but no sound came out. I felt a presence in the house, not in the living room, in my bedroom, behind me. The door to my closet, which I had locked, slowly opened. The sound of old wood, dry and agonizing, echoed in the room. Behind me, a whisper, the same smooth voice I heard through the back door at my old house. Don't be scared, Mara. We just wanted to play hide and seek. And then a creak that didn't come from my closet. It came from above, from my bed, as if someone was crawling on the ceiling. I felt the bed dip, as if a weight was balancing on it. I didn't know what to do, where to look, at the man in the window or at what was crawling above me. The whisper came again, closer, seeming to come from all directions at once. We always knew. I didn't know who we were, but I knew they didn't want to play. I started to scream, a long, terrible note of pure horror, and the whisper whispered one last time, closer than I could have imagined. You have a new place now, don't you? And an alley, and we know your name. I collapsed in on myself, a terrified heap, knowing I was alone in the darkness, with something in my bed and a man with claws at my window. And they knew my name. They knew where I lived. They knew everything. And they were only just beginning to play.
In the quiet suburb of Shadow Valley, a family tried to start anew. John and Mary, with their 3 small children, had just moved from the bustling metropolis to a house with a garden Mary described as peculiarly charming. The garden was adorned with ancient, weathered stone statues that John found a bit macabre, but his wife loved them, saying they gave the place character. He didn't mind. Less work for him. A few days after moving in, John noticed something odd. One of the statues, a marble angel with broken wings, was facing away from the house. He was certain they had all been facing forward. Mary, engrossed in unpacking, barely paid attention. John tried to blame it his son, Peter, a mischievous 7-year-old, but Peter denied it with a sincerity that convinced him. The next morning, the scene repeated itself. Another statue had shifted position, and John's heart pounded. He started checking the garden every morning. With each new dawn, a different statue would turn, slowly and methodically. The feeling of being watched, even in daylight, became unbearable. The family was struggling financially, and the pressure of work only added to their anxiety. Moving was not an option. The tranquility was shattered when, one evening, John looked out the kitchen window. All the statues were lined up, right at the edge of the house, like a silent stone platoon of observers. A chilling shiver ran down his spine. It felt like a nightmare materializing before his eyes. With his heart pounding, he ventured into the garden, armed only with a flashlight. The statues were incredibly heavy, unmovable. It was impossible for one person to move them alone. Mary joined him, pale and wide-eyed. She suggested it might be the neighbors, but the idea of someone doing such cruelty to a family with children disturbed her. The police were called, but they could do nothing but suggest security cameras, something the family couldn't afford. John and Mary did everything to hide the incident from the children. For a few days, nothing happened. Hope began to bloom, a fragile flower amidst the fear. Perhaps the pranksters had been scared off by the police presence. John tried to convince himself. The weekend arrived, and John decided to take the children to play in the backyard. The joy of seeing the children laughing was crushed by a terrifying sight. On the back wall of their house, the words "Go away" were spray-painted in large black letters. John nearly dropped his son when he saw it. Without thinking, he ushered his kids and wife inside and ran through the garden screaming threats. But there was no one. The police returned, but with no leads, there wasn't much they could do. The idea that teenage delinquents could be behind something so sinister was unacceptable to John. He promised his wife that if anything else happened, they would move, no matter the cost.
That night, Mary's sharp scream cut through the silence. In the backyard, 5 figures wearing white masks danced in strange, almost robotic movements. John grabbed the biggest kitchen knife and ran outside, screaming like a lunatic. But it was 5 against 1. He retreated, like a coward, back inside. The figures stopped dancing and disappeared into the garden. The police arrived, conducted a thorough search, but found nothing. Determined to protect his family, John bought and installed security cameras the next day. Mary was hysterical, begging him to move, but he convinced her to wait. The cameras seemed to have worked, as the intruders never returned. But the explanation never came.
Weeks turned into months of an illusory peace. The statues remained still, the graffiti was removed, and life seemed to return to normal in Shadow Valley. The children played in the garden again, and Mary finally began to enjoy the house. But John, even with the security cameras and the apparent tranquility, never felt completely safe in his own home again. Every shadow, every nocturnal sound made him look at the monitoring screens, waiting for the inevitable. He became a prisoner of vigilance, a man who could no longer sleep soundly. One night, while checking the cameras, John saw something that chilled him to the bone. In the recordings from the previous week, a dark silhouette moved silently among the statues. It was not human. Its form was elongated, disproportionate, and its movements were fluid and unnatural. He tried to speed up the recording, but the figure seemed to move in real time, a spectral presence that disobeyed the laws of physics. The silhouette approached the wall where the words "Go away" had been spray-painted. To John's horror, the figure had no hands, but its long, thin fingers extended, scraping the stone. The words "Go away" began to appear on the wall, not with paint, but as if they were being carved into the stone with supernatural force. John ran to the backyard, his flashlight trembling in his hands. The statues were still. The camera showed only the empty garden, but the graffiti was there, fresh and chilling. He went back inside, his eyes glued to the screens. The silhouette did not reappear that night. The next morning, an unmarked envelope was found in the mailbox. Inside, there was an old photo of the house. In it, the statues were all facing the house, as they should have been. But hidden in the grass, there was an almost imperceptible detail. A pair of glowing, hungry eyes peering from the darkness beneath one of the statues. On the back of the photo, a single word was written in old, shaky handwriting: "We are here." John felt a shiver of pure terror. That entity wasn't just moving the statues or vandalizing walls. It was in the house before them, observing, waiting. The statues were not the threat, but silent guardians, a boundary that had been violated. The family was never safe. The woman outside the house who thanked him was a bait. She was there for John to trust her. She was part of it. That night, the family gathered in the master bedroom. John tried to act normal, but his eyes remained fixed on the window. He swore he would never feel safe again. Then, he heard a sound. It didn't come from outside. It came from the roof. A slow, dragging scrape. A sound of heavy scratching. He knew. It was the angel. The angel was coming inside. The lights began to flicker, the power failing throughout the house. The scratching intensified, coming from the attic. The children whimpered. Mary clung to them. John knew that the statues, the guardians, were their last defenders. But they were outside, and the angel was inside. A deafening crash came from the attic, followed by absolute silence. Suddenly, the attic door, located in the hallway, slowly opened, revealing impenetrable darkness. John grabbed a fire extinguisher, the only heavy object he had at hand. A tall, slender figure emerged from the darkness of the attic. It was not the stone angel from the garden. It was something far worse. It had the form of an angel, but its limbs were elongated and thin like twisted branches, and its eyes were two empty slits that seemed to absorb light. There were no wings, but the creature floated in the air, moving with a sinister grace. The creature stopped in the hallway, a few feet from the bedroom door. John felt an icy chill run down his spine. It was not the cold of the night, but the cold of death. The creature extended one of its long arms and pointed to the bedroom door. "You shouldn't have come back." A dry, rasping whisper seemed to come from all directions. "The house doesn't like intruders. It wants you. And the statues, they are the portal." Then John realized the statues were not guardians of the house. They were the keys to the entry of something older, something that had been awakened by the family's move. The statues moved to align the portal, and the graffiti was a warning. The white masks were the faces of those who had already succumbed to the house. The creature took a step forward, and the bedroom door slowly opened. Mary screamed, pulling the children closer. John raised the extinguisher, ready to fight, knowing it was useless. The last thing John saw before the darkness swallowed him was the creature's smile, a lipless grin that revealed a mouth full of sharp teeth. Shadow Valley had finally claimed its new inhabitants.
Taylor and I, a childless couple with a love for rural life, decided to move to New Mexico. As an electrician, I had no trouble finding work. We found an incredible house in the countryside, larger than we needed, but we planned to use it to host friends. A few months later, I started noticing something strange. The upstairs lights would trip, but the rest of the house still had power. Being an electrician, I knew it was an overload problem at the breaker. I decided to investigate the basement. The basement was a tangle of old furniture and discarded objects. I had never spent much time there, just a quick look when the realtor showed us the house. After 10 minutes, I realized where the problem was and decided to fix it later. However, curiosity led me to explore. In the furthest corner, behind stacks of old wooden chairs, there was a huge metal door. It looked industrial, much taller and thicker than normal. It was the kind of door you would see securing a walk-in safe or some kind of panic room. I tried to open it, but the handle wouldn't budge. It was locked. I rushed upstairs and rummaged through the drawer of keys the previous owners had left, but none of them worked on the door. I told Taylor about the door, and she was as curious about it as I was. Somehow, she managed to get in touch with the former owners. That phone call made me more than just concerned. They seemed strange on the phone. Long pauses before answering, as if they were carefully choosing each word. When I asked about the door, there was a tense silence. The wife finally said it was just a safe room for tornadoes and that they had lost the key. That didn't convince me, especially since they had left keys for doors we would never need to lock. The way she said it gave me a terrible gut feeling. The call ended abruptly, without goodbyes. Taylor tried to laugh it off, saying I was overthinking it, but the door wouldn't leave my mind. In the following weeks, I would go down to the basement just to stare at it, wondering what was behind that heavy metal. I tried everything to open it, but the lock was unbreakable. I gave up for a week, but curiosity got the better of me again. 2 days ago, things took a sinister turn. Ignoring Taylor's protests, I hired a locksmith. After half an hour, I went down to check on him. He told me that the lock was unusually complex for a simple panic room. But to my surprise, he managed to crack it after another half an hour of work. I wish he hadn't. What I found inside shocked me. The room looked like a shrine. Old black and white photographs covered the walls, adorned with strange symbols I had never seen. In the center, a chair faced the wall, as if someone had spent hours there, just staring at nothing. In one corner, a cot with crumpled blankets exuded a smell of mold and something more repugnant. Nearby, garbage, empty chip bags, crumpled water bottles. It hit me. Someone had been living there, and not long ago. As if the situation couldn't get worse, I noticed a second door on the right side of the room,
small and almost hidden in the dim light. I opened it and found it led to a staircase that went to the outside cellar door. I felt like an idiot. I had never checked that door, assuming it only led to the basement. In all the time we lived there, I had never opened it. My confusion soon turned into pure terror. Someone had literally been living in our house for who knows how long. Several strange things that Taylor and I had noticed began to make sense. Missing objects, the peculiar smell of mold we sometimes felt. It had been them. It had been the occupant of that basement. I tried to call the former owners, demanding an explanation, but they wouldn't answer. Their number had been disconnected, or they simply didn't want to deal with it. Taylor was in a panic, and so was I. That night I dragged heavy furniture to barricade the basement door from the inside. I found a sturdy chain and padlocked it for good measure. No matter what it cost, I wouldn't let anyone get back in through that door. The police came and took a full report, but with no leads. They told us they would do their best to get in touch with the former owners, but it could take days. 2 days passed and we still couldn't contact them. I was furious and horrified. Taylor was a wreck. That night, as we were getting ready for bed, we heard a loud bang on the front door. Lola, our black lab, barked furiously, and we both froze, just staring at each other, listening. After a few minutes, the banging stopped, but then we heard small rocks tapping against our bedroom window. Taylor clung to Lola, and I, furious, went to look. Taylor begged me not to, but I was determined to confront whoever was out there. I grabbed the baseball bat from under the bed and pulled back the curtains, but I couldn't see anything. We thought it was over. Taylor wanted me to call the police, but a part of me wanted to handle it myself. I knew the police would scare them away, and I wanted them caught. I told her that if anything else happened, I would call. Then, from downstairs, I heard the sound of glass shattering. I ran downstairs just in time to see 2 figures running away from the house. The kitchen window was completely shattered. That's when I called the police, who arrived shortly after. They searched the house and the basement, but there were no signs of forced entry into the safe room. They also didn't find anyone on the property. Their best guess was that whoever had been living down there was angry about being locked out and decided to come back and scare us.
The days dragged on, tense and filled with a disturbing quiet. The police increased surveillance, but the former owners remained unreachable, like ghosts refusing to be contacted. Taylor was a wreck, her eyes always wide, interpreting every creak of the house as a threat. I became a relentless guardian, sleeping little, with the baseball bat always within reach, my ears alert for any sound from the basement. One night, Lola, who had always been a beacon of protection, began to howl. Not a warning bark, but a deep, eerie wail that seemed to come from her gut. The sound awakened me from an uneasy sleep. Taylor was also awake, pale, her eyes fixed on the basement door we had barricaded. Lola's howling stopped abruptly, followed by a dull thud. I rushed to the basement, the baseball bat heavy in my hands. The furniture barricade was intact. The chain and padlock I had placed on the inner door were untouched. But Lola's howl, it haunted me. I couldn't see anything in the darkness of the basement, just the outlines of old objects and the persistent smell of mold. Suddenly, the flashlight beam revealed something. Not on the inner door, but on the outer door, the one leading to the basement through the backyard. The chain was broken, the padlock crushed on the floor as if it had been hit by a colossal force. The cellar door was slightly ajar. The cold air coming from the opening was laden with a smell I didn't recognize, something sweet and putrid at the same time. I called Lola, but there was no answer. A chill ran down my spine. It wasn't possible. I had checked that door hundreds of times. It was secure. Suddenly, a dragging sound came from deep within the basement. The sound of something large and heavy moving in the darkness. I recoiled, my heart pounding, feeling sweat trickle down my forehead. Taylor's voice called me from upstairs, but I couldn't answer. The outer cellar door opened further, revealing a tall, slender silhouette in the gloom. It wasn't one of the figures I had seen before. It was something different. Its arms were long and bony, ending in sharp claws. Its eyes, 2 points of red light that glowed in the darkness, fixed on me. "You didn't fool us," a rough, guttural voice echoed in the basement, seeming to come from all corners. "You trapped us, but the house, it's ours, and what's inside it is also ours." The creature took a step forward, and the flashlight revealed its form. It had no skin. It was just muscle and bone, a twisted abomination that seemed to have been made of nightmares. Hanging from one of its hands, like a broken toy, was Lola's collar. I screamed, throwing the baseball bat at the creature, but it passed through it as if it didn't exist. The creature approached quickly, and I tried to run, but my feet seemed stuck to the floor. The last thing I heard was Taylor scream from upstairs before darkness swallowed me. The house was not just a shelter. It was a trap, and the cellar's secret had finally been revealed. We were not the owners. We were the new provision.
At 27, the house I had saved so much to buy was a milestone in my life. Having always lived with my parents, 3 siblings, and 2 dogs, I was accustomed to chaos and life. Now, I was alone. The lack of noise was the hardest part of the transition, a silence that felt deafening. Still, there was a small refuge, the second-floor balcony. It was tiny, barely big enough for one person, but it was my sanctuary. Every night after work, I would go out to smoke and clear my head. The balcony was perfect, a luxury that allowed me to smoke without leaving the house. The layout of the houses was standard, side by side, with backyards separated by 10-foot fences. From my balcony, I could see my back neighbor's yard. Weeks went by, and I realized I had met almost all the neighbors except him. He never waved, never appeared in the yard. I never even saw a light in his window. It was as if he didn't exist. The grass in the neighbor's yard was so tall it looked untouched for years, and the silence of his property was constant. Curiosity got the better of me. One Saturday, I decided to introduce myself. I walked around the block to his house, expecting a brief conversation. But the house was a disaster. The paint was peeling, the siding was scratched, the walkway stained. The doorbell was broken, so I knocked a few times and waited. Nothing. I was about to leave, thinking the place was vacant, when I saw a slight movement in the window shade, just a flicker, as if someone was peering out. That was enough. Someone was in there, spying on me, but didn't want to open the door. I turned to leave, when suddenly the door flew open with a bang, slamming against the wall, as if ripped open in a violent rage. I jumped back, startled. There she was, an elderly Asian woman with gray hair pulled back into a tight bun. Her skin was wrinkled, but tense, as if she was flexing her facial muscles. Her eyes were wide, unsettlingly wide. Something about her bothered me. She seemed to be under the influence of something. She didn't say a word, just stared at me blankly. Eventually, I cleared my throat and introduced myself as the new neighbor. After a few seconds, she said her name was Priscilla and gave me a half smile. And that was it. She didn't even ask my name. She just stood there, watching me. I nodded and turned away, not knowing what to say. I left feeling more unnerved than I wanted to admit. I never heard the door close behind me, but I didn't want to turn around and be caught looking. Later that night, I went out to my balcony, as usual, trying to forget the strange interaction. At that moment, I had no idea of the nightmare I had gotten myself into. When I glanced over the railing, there she was, the woman, standing dead center in her yard, looking straight up at my house. She didn't move, didn't call out, just stood there, staring. It was one of those moments where you wonder if you're actually seeing what you think you're seeing. I didn't know if I should say something, wave, or pretend I hadn't noticed her. It was one of the freakiest things I had ever seen, and I didn't know how to handle it. I went back inside and told myself she was just a little messed up in the head, and that I shouldn't be getting worked up over a harmless old lady. But it didn't stop there. The following night, I saw her again, but this time she was moving from one window to another inside her house, watching me from each one. Although I pretended not to notice her, part of me felt like she knew that I knew she was watching. I was hoping she would stop, but she didn't. She was still looking at me when I finished smoking and turned to go inside. Out of curiosity, I peeked out one of my windows about 20 minutes later to see if she was still looking at my house. To my horror, she was. I called my dad, and he told me that she probably had dementia or something, and that she was most likely just lonely or confused. He told me that I should actually feel bad for her. It was kind of hard to feel bad for someone who was borderline stalking me, but my dad calmed my nerves and assured me that she was harmless. A few nights passed without anything weird happening. I didn't see her in her yard or at any of her windows. I thought maybe my dad had been right and was starting to feel glad that I hadn't done something drastic. That is, until one morning when I found a woman's sock on my side of the fence, just sitting in my yard. I stared at it, feeling a chill run through me. This wasn't just her strange behavior anymore. She had been on my property. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to confront her, but I was starting to feel like I couldn't ignore it either. I should have called the police right then and there, but I didn't because I didn't want to create issues with a neighbor. That night, as I was lying in bed, the doorbell started ringing. Not once, not twice, but at least a dozen times, one after the other. I didn't even need to look. I knew it was her. In my tired haze, I wasn't thinking clearly. I was more annoyed than scared. I got up, threw on a shirt, and went to the door, telling myself I would just ask her to leave me alone. I told myself I had been putting this off long enough, and it was time I dealt with it. I have no idea why I wasn't scared at that moment. I still look back and cringe at how flippantly I handled the situation. I don't even want to say I was naive, but I can't think of a better word to describe my attitude to it all. The second I opened the door, she lunged at me. She ran at full speed at me with a kitchen knife in her hand, her face twisted in rage. She started screaming, yelling something about how she had taken her son from me. I barely had time to process what was happening. I grabbed her arm, managed to wrestle the knife out of her grip, and I pinned her down on the floor. She was easy to overpower, but that didn't make the situation any less terrifying. My heart was racing, and my hands were shaking as I held her there and called the police. She was still screaming nonsense about her son and told me that she was going to kill me. At one point, she tried to bite me, but I wasn't going to let her go until the police arrived. It was the longest 5 minutes of my life. She never stopped screaming or squirming the entire time. When the police finally arrived, they restrained her and forced her into one of their cruisers. She screamed the whole time, and I could still hear her screaming even after they shoved her in the car. I had never been more scared in my life. The police made sure I was okay and told me she would be sent to some kind of psychiatric facility. I never saw her again after that. This incident still weighs heavily on my mind and has definitely made me a more paranoid and cautious person. I ended up moving out less than a year later.
The house seemed like a refuge, but it became a prison.
The incident with Priscilla deeply marked me, turning me into a paranoid man, always on guard. I moved, seeking peace in a new place, but the fear persisted, a shadow that followed me. Years passed. I was in a new city, in a new house, trying to rebuild normality. But certain memories never fade. One night, while flipping through old newspapers, I found a piece of news that chilled me to the bone. The house where I had lived, the house next to Priscilla's, had been demolished. The article mentioned a strange discovery during the demolition, a secret room in the basement, sealed with concrete and chains, and inside it, a human skeleton. The name on the record was Priscilla. But how? Priscilla was alive. She had been institutionalized. What had I found? The report continued, detailing Priscilla's story. She had been an ordinary woman until her son, a teenager, disappeared. The police never found anything. Priscilla, devastated, came to believe that the neighbors had taken him. She began to act strangely, and her sanity disintegrated. She built the secret room to protect her son, hoping he would return. The news didn't mention anything about the knife or the assault, only her madness and her missing son. The photo in the newspaper showed the demolished house, the secret room exposed. On the wall of the room, strange scribbles and symbols, the same ones I had seen in the basement house. My heart pounded. The stories connected in a horrible way. Priscilla's house, the house that had hidden a secret, and mine, which had housed a hidden occupant. That night, I couldn't sleep. The past was catching up to me. I remembered Priscilla's sketch, her appearance, her eyes. It wasn't madness. It was something more. I remembered the sock in my backyard, the "Go away" graffiti, the masked figures dancing. They weren't teenagers. They were those who lived in the underworld of my neighborhood. The phone rang. An unknown number. I hesitated, but answered. A deep, raspy voice on the other end said, "You found what you were looking for, didn't you? The house doesn't let its secrets be revealed. You opened the door, and now it's open for you too." The call dropped. An icy chill ran down my spine. Priscilla's house, my house, weren't just structures. They were portals. That skeleton wasn't her son. It was the house's first victim. And Priscilla, she wasn't crazy. She was just trying to warn me. She was the guardian of the portal. Suddenly, my new house's doorbell began to ring. Once, twice, a dozen times, like that night. I knew it wasn't a neighbor. I knew it wasn't a mistake. I went to the window and looked outside. There she was, Priscilla. Not the old woman I had restrained, but a translucent, ethereal figure with the same wide, terrifying eyes I remembered. She stood in the middle of my driveway, looking directly at my window. She raised a wrinkled hand, and her lips moved, though no sound came out. But I heard. In my mind, the voice whispered, "He's here. He came for you. He's waiting for you." Behind her, in the middle of the deserted street, a tall, shadowy figure began to materialize. It had no defined form, just a mass of darkness that seemed to twist and pulsate. It had no eyes, but I felt its gaze penetrating me, pulling me into the darkness. The front door creaked, slowly opening. I hadn't locked it. I hadn't locked any door in my new house. Shadow Valley had found its new path. I ran to the back of the house, to the garden. There was nowhere to go. The fences were too high. The walls were solid. I was trapped. I was back, but this time there was no escape. I heard scratching sounds on the roof, the sound of something dragging, coming inside. I heard the cellar door opening, and the smell, the sweet, putrid smell.
I turned around, and there she was, the figure of Priscilla behind me. She no longer had the smile, just an expression of pure terror. "It's too late," she whispered, and her form began to disintegrate. The shadow that was on the street was now in my backyard, and it wasn't alone. More and more shadows, each darker and more amorphous than the last, began to fill the garden. They were the true inhabitants of the house, and they were coming for me. The last thing I saw was the main figure approaching, its long, thin arms extending to embrace me, and I knew I was no longer the occupant. I was the next part of the house, the next victim.